Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going over 10 common and just a few uncommon cards you guys are going to need from Draft Box 5. I know there's a lot of talks of shortages, possible stores not getting their product, but to buy a place of all these cards should not cost you more than like $5-10. Again, there are a few uncommons in here. That's just because Blue has a pretty weak pool of common cards. So, just wanted to get that out of the way. Guys, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so never miss a video. If you guys want to support the channel, lots of ways you can do that. Number one, we got the Patreon down below, lots of competitive content for you. Number two, we got the Crossroad TCG merch store. You get this sick looking logo on a t-shirt, really helps support the channel. And finally, guys, we've got the YouTube channel memberships down below. And if you want to buy any of the cards you see in today's video, make sure you use my link to TCG Player or Bearded Collectibles. With that being said, let's get on with it. So starting off with the black cards, the first card we're looking at, the Final Mission, a common extra card coming out of Draft Box 5 for black. So it is very, very splashable because there is no specific cost for any type of color. Any deck can run this. The effect, activate main, choose 4 battle cards, energy cost between 3 and 7 in your drop area, shuffle them back into your deck. That is the cost. Most decks I can think of that are in the metagame or even on a rogue status should be pretty easily able to meet this condition. Let's read the rest of it. Choose all of your opponent's battle cards, 20,000 power or less. Send them to their owner's warp. So this is a good card to have in your back pocket because there are formats where this can be incredibly relevant. Like, let's just say, and this is kind of relevant now, let's just say you want to get rid of your opponent's board full of Raiders War Cries. You get there pretty quickly. You could also ramp to this card by using the Android 16 card. If you're playing blue-green, you're able to get to this on turn 3, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, any format where your opponent is spamming a very wide board, you're going to want to have this card at your disposal. This is also very good in Hatchiyack specifically. I mean, Hatchiyack's all about shuffling battle cards back, so that's a pretty easy thing to meet there. And a lot of times your opponent is going to just build a really wide board against you if you're playing Hatchiyack, and you don't really have wide board removal. So even though your opponent can't attack with all those battle cards, they're still building combo power, they're still building value, and if you answer one threat, they have another threat ready to start attacking. So having this card in your back pocket as Hatchiyack, but having it in your back pocket in general, I think is very good in my opinion. Next card I'm talking about, Bionic Battler Bullerator. So this is a 2-drop 15k, so pretty good stats in general. Counterattack, negate the attack, play this card, then choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 1 and send it to the owner's warp. This is another really good card in the common slot for black because we're seeing 1-drops really rise in value. Not like monetary value, but like what they bring to the game state. So for example, in the current format, we've got Frieza's Death's Embrace. In Draft Box 5, we have Basil Fatal Rampage. So those are 1-drops that are really stepping up the game for other 1-drops. I mean, you know, Frieza's Death's Embrace, you pay 1, you minus 10 something, and you can do that for as much energy as you have. It's not once per turn. And then Basil Fatal Rampage, if your opponent taps a significant amount of cards to make plays, they get punished by a 19k dual attacker for 1 energy. So we're really seeing the stock, the value in what cards do in terms of 1-drops. We're seeing that shoot up quite a bit. So having a card that warps them with a counterattack attached to it, with a 15k body attached to it, that's pretty good value. Like if you're playing against Cooler, for example, you can very reliably use this negate to 1-stop an attack, like from a Cooler Double Strike, for example, and get rid of their Frieza's Death's Embrace. That's pretty flexible, pretty high value there in my opinion. So good card to have, again, in my opinion. Next up, we're talking about Hyssop the Frozen Titan. We're starting to talk about the yellow cards. So I think this card's absolutely incredible. If you guys have been following me here on the channel or here on the Patreon, you would know that I am a huge fan of Frost Before the Storm. It's a 1-drop red card out of set 9 that reads pretty similar to Hyssop. So Frost's abilities, activate main once per turn, pay a red, draw a card. Hyssop is a 1-drop yellow, activate main once per turn, choose one of your opponent's energy, and switch it to rest mode. Again, we're seeing that stock of 1-drops just shoot up. What 1-drops do nowadays is incredibly powerful, and this card is no exception. And again, it's that thing we're talking about a lot on this channel recently, mana sinks. Great Ape Instinct Son Goku is a $115 mana sink at the moment. If you have nothing better to do with the energy, you pay 2, you warp it from your drop area, you draw 2 cards. In this case, and in Frost's case, you pay 1 to either draw 1 or tap an energy. And a lot of times in this counterplay format, you're not going to be wanting to make too many plays with your actual energy or with actual battle cards in your hand because you might be afraid of Denial of Hope, you might be afraid of hidden potential. So having a 1-drop that is kind of hard to deal with as long as you keep it in active mode, having that 1-drop on the board where you can always just use energy to do something with and not pass your turn feeling like you did nothing, that is a pretty high value card that you're going to want to have, in my opinion. Next up, Chapil, the Iron Drake. This card is really cool coming out of Draft Box 5. 2-drop 15k, so again, good stats. It is an uncommon, I'm sorry, but this should not reach any type of level like Topo, Righteous Aid. It really just shouldn't. Auto once per turn, when an opponent's card attacks, choose up to one of your opponent's energy and switch it to rest mode. So there's a kind of a weird dichotomy with 2-drops nowadays in the current format. So if you go first, your 2-drop is pretty much safe from everything. I mean, your opponent is going to usually charge their 1 energy. Most of the time it's going to be tapped if you're playing against a multicolor deck, and most decks in the format are multicolor. So you'll be playing this on your 2 energy into your opponent's 1 energy, and it's not going to be viable to get counterplayed. But if you go second, it gets a little bit weirder. But if you use this and your opponent counterplays it, you don't feel as bad, because then on your turn 3, 4, 5, you have a little bit more freedom in what you can do. But anyways, as a 2-drop, this card is really powerful. So again, if you go first and establish this, or even if you go second, if you're able to establish this card, you're basically going to be limiting your opponent on what they can do. They attack you, you get to tap one of their energy free. That's free real estate if I've ever seen it before. They have to really invest energy into killing this, and if this thing has been sitting on the board for a few turns at that point, you have your counterplays up, you have your ability to interrupt their battle cards. So this card was really accrue you value over the course of the game. I think it's a really, really strong yellow card at the uncommon slot. Next up, Zarbuto Heroic Stance. 1-drop 5k auto. Choose 1 card in your life and add it to your hand. When this card attacks, it gets plus 10,000 power for the duration of the turn. So finally, green is getting its Cava. It's getting its SS3 last straw. So every color, for the most part, except for blue, I guess, has the attacker that takes life and gains crit. And I guess black doesn't have either, unfortunately. Hopefully they get that card soon, but that card would be really nuts in Demigrod. But that's like a tangent. So anyways, yeah, green is finally getting their Cava. This is a staple you definitely want to have a playset of. Thankfully, it is at the common slot. I could have seen them, honestly, putting this at like the rare slot. That would have been a pretty chase rare, but the fact that it's only a common, this is a very, very good card at the common slot. This allows green to be a little bit more aggressive. Like if you want to play a combination of Newfound Power Sun Gohan and Zarbuto Heroic Stance, that could be really powerful depending on the deck you're playing. You might just need the Self-Awaken. You might need to be able to put on that pressure. And again, this is a card that is super powerful against the right stall decks. So for example, if Shenron ever becomes relevant in the format again, this is a great card for green to have at its disposal. Cava was single-handedly tearing up Shenron when Shenron ramp was a thing. So having this card, having the utility of this card in the green color is really awesome. Only downside to this card is he looks super, super awkward without his counterpart card, the other guy that wants to give him a hug. So that's the one downside to him, but other than that, great card to have. Next up for green common, we're talking about Big Armor, 2-drop, extra card. Activate main if leader card is green, so it is leader locked. Your opponent can't attack with battle cards with energy costs of 5 or more until the start of your next main phase. This is actually an incredible card, and it's so cool it's at the common slot. This is a great side deck card for green. I mean, maybe it's not so great in the current format, but again, it's a card you're going to want to have in your back pocket. Like, think about when Baby, Yellow Starter Baby, was the arguably, in my opinion, best deck of the format right before the Surge Leaders came out. This card would have been a saving grace against that deck. Green leaders could have actually had a fighting chance because it just prevents all their 7-drops, 5-drops, 6-drops from attacking you. Like Heartfelt Plea can't attack you, Apocalyptic Grudge Grade A Baby can't attack you, Ultimate Evil Lifeform Baby can't attack you. This card, in my opinion, excellent common you want to have a playset of. Mechiorp, Bobbing and Weaving. Again, another uncommon, but I did mention that the blue cards really are pretty weak at the common level, so I do have to mention these uncommons here. But 2-drop 15k, counter attack, negate the attack, play this card, then choose up to one of your blue energy and switch it to active mode. So I'm a really, really big fan of this card. Again, there are just certain matchups like mid-range matchups and control matchups where you can very easily get away with a 2-drop 15k counter attack that stops the threat from doing damage to you. And this one on top of that also untaps energy. So in my opinion, for the rate you get this at, the 1-drop 15k beater, and you're coupling that with blue. So let's say you're playing a blue leader, you can follow that up with Dimension Magic, get your 2 energy back up, and your defense just continues. If you're playing a non-blue leader, but you're still playing like red blue or yellow blue, whatever the case is, again, the 2-drop 15k negate, you get 1 energy back, and then you get your access back to Whis Coercion if you're playing it. I think Whis Coercion is an absolute staple in blue if you're not playing a blue-based leader, because of the appearance of Reboot Gohan as a premier aggro deck in the format. I think this card is an absolute staple you want to have. Again, in the right deck, it could be really good for stopping pressure and then putting pressure back on your opponent. And one of the last cards I want to talk about, guys, Mirakeem, no idea if I'm saying that right. Brave Bruiser, 4-drop 20k, double strike barrier, so pretty good keywords there. Activate main once per turn. Your opponent reveals top card of their deck, If it's a battle card, this card gets plus 5,000 power and dual attack for the turn. So if you guys saw my video from, I think 2 weeks ago now, you know I'm not a huge fan of Universe 10. I don't think it's a very, very good archetype, but this card is very reminiscent of the Ginyu that came out of the last draft box, and it's at the uncommon level, so it's a lot easier to access, and it has a pretty similar effect. So in this game, just the way the game works, unless you're playing against like a Shenron deck, or unless you're playing against U7 Invoker, the top card of your opponent's deck will most likely be a battle card. So for a double strike barrier dual attack for 4 energy that protects itself from Vegeta the Cruel and a few other counterplays like that, this card is very, very powerful in my opinion. Could be a great card. Could be like a good sideboard card for blue against Hatchiyak, for example, because again, you will probably show or reveal a battle card off the top of their deck, and then you're going to get the dual attack double strike for that big pressure. Now we're talking about the red cards. We're finishing up here. 1-drop counter attack, negate the attack, then choose one of your battle cards and gets plus 5,000 power till the end of the next turn. Mystic Talismans, an amazing negate. This is a very, very good generic red negate, giving one of your battle cards a plus 5k senzu bean. Like if you're playing defense on your battle cards and then giving them the plus 5k for the turn, that's just super high value there. Very, very big fan of this card. I'm glad they didn't add a discard cost to this because it's really, really good defensively. All right, guys, here we are. The final card I want to talk about, Bear Hugger Tupper. 1-drop 5k auto. Choose one card in your life, place it in your drop area. When you play this card, choose one of your opponent's battle cards. It gets minus 15,000 power for the turn. Again, we're talking about how 1-drops are really, really raising their value and what they can do. This is a great 1-drop. So it does self-awaken you. It does place life in the drop area, which is a bit unfortunate. But this is a 1-drop that gives something minus 15,000 power. When you look at minus 15,000 power, you have to be thinking that this answers things that cost more than he costs himself. And that's really high value in a 1-drop. So yeah, you do get self-awaken. Again, you don't get it to your hand, but it's still very good. And you get to minus 15,000 something. That could be a 2-drop, that could be a 3-drop. So having a 1 energy answer to something that's 2 or 3 or possibly 4 energy worth on your opponent's side of the field is a very, very powerful effect. So guys, those are the commons and a few uncommon cards I think you should consider picking up from Draftbox 5. It should be very well within budget. Again, no more than $5-10. And guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.